Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the after photo. Many of us have seen the portrait of Edwin Buzz Aldrin on the moon. It's an iconic image and has gone on to become one of the most inspiring images of all time, but what we don't see is the one that came immediately after. Maybe it's an arm, maybe it's a chest or a belly, either way it belongs to the taker of the photo, Neil Armstrong. Even the first people on the moon take accidental photos. I mean, it can't be easy in all of that gear. I can't even make a phone call with gloves on. I can't even imagine being in space, trying to snap a selfie while making history. It's nice to see the clean, polished, inspiring part of history, but it's also nice to sometimes remind ourselves that we are all just humans, and humans are silly. In our number 9 spot today we have the crescent Earth. Less bizarre and more downright artistic and beautiful, truly the only thing that makes this photo bizarre is its lack of popularity, as well as the point of view and how opposite of our own it is. At a first glance it looks like a photo of the night sky as seen from a sort of piece of space technology, and it looks like the photo captures a sweet crescent moon. While this makes a lot of sense, what we're actually seeing is the Earth as it rises and looms over the Apollo 14 lander. That crescent is Earth. We look like that from the moon! It completely makes sense, it's just something I had failed to think about before. If you were to camp out on the far side of the moon, because the moon and Earth are tidally locked, you wouldn't be able to see Earth, but on the near side of the moon, you'd see the Earth all the time, and through the course of about a month, the Earth would also go through phases just like the moon does, but they'd be the direct opposite of the phases people on Earth would be witnessing the moon going through, if that made any sense at all. I can't believe I had never seen this photo before because it truly is stunning. In our number 8 spot today we have the moon. This image shows a series of 3 photographs that are just a few of the hundreds taken by the Apollo astronauts. While there are many interesting photos that were taken by those on the Apollo missions, the vast majority of them are just of the moon as seen from their window. Don't get me wrong, seeing photos of the moon up close and personal is magnificent. It's very cool and it's stunning to look at, but once you see it a few dozen times in photos, perhaps the novelty wears off a bit. Of course, the same can't be said for seeing it actually in real life out of the window next to you though. Until travel to the moon becomes a regular old everyday thing like it's a commute to work, that novelty won't ever wear off, as evidenced by the extremely extensive catalog of close-up moon photos taken by the crew. It honestly is kind of nice to see though. To me, astronauts seem so cool and serious and intelligent, and while all of those things likely are very true, they're also giddy, excited humans who were clearly thrilled to be where they were. It's just humanizing, that's all I'm saying. In our number 7 spot today we have the end of the roll. This is a photo that was taken on the Apollo 7 mission, and while it was likely meant to be just a stunning photo, thank goodness it wasn't meant to include or document anything exceptionally important because, well, the photo is greatly obscured by the end of the roll tape. This photo is hilarious. It appears to be of Earth, and it looks like the photo would show this beautiful white swirl spanning across the blue planet, a beautiful piece of photography, if it weren't for the rectangle taking up a third of the image, right smack dab in the middle. These people are astronauts, not photographers, and despite that, they managed to take some exceptional photos while on their missions, so I think it's fair to cut them some slack for this one. It's not like their thumb was in the way or something like that. In our number 6 spot today we have the selfie. The word selfie hasn't been around for that long, but people have been taking them for years. With adjustable views and forward-facing cameras, it's definitely gotten a lot easier, but that didn't stop Apollo 17's Ron Evans from having his hand at them, while of course in space. This photo shows about half of Ron, although it's tough to tell with him decked out in his spacesuit. Apparently he snapped this photo while he was retrieving exposed film from outside of the spacecraft. I think that means he was in the midst of a spacewalk when he snapped this selfie. That is perhaps the most badass selfie of all time. On the way back to Earth near the end of the mission, Evans did a 1 hour and 6 minute long spacewalk, so it's entirely possible that this is exactly where this photo is from. I mean, that would explain the absolute nothingness that can be seen behind him. In our number 5 spot today we have Number 2. When we hear about space missions, we often hear of the grueling work and preparations, or perhaps the science and mathematics that went into the planning, or maybe we're just there for the cool photos and interesting discoveries. But whatever it is, we normally don't hear about, either from reports or the astronaut themselves, is how on Earth they managed to use the facilities while flying through space and living in zero gravity. Well, thanks to Apollo 17, some of the mysteries surrounding it were unveiled, although this photo didn't exactly go viral. The final, for now, mission to the moon had those on board snapping shots of the plastic bags that were filled with their space pee. Also, note the device used to help collect it that is located at the top of the bag. Yeah, that little thing was actually cited as the reason women couldn't serve in the Apollo space program. You're telling me that NASA could figure out how to send people to the moon, but it was too difficult at the time to figure out the female anatomy and how a woman could pee in space? Okay, it's a little suspicious at best. And at our number 4 spot today, we have the Mars eclipse. So this is more of a video rather than one single image. Well, actually it's a series of 89 different images that, when strung together, act like a video, but I digress. It was all captured by NASA's Curiosity rover as it showed us insights into what life is like on Mars. So on Earth, we have this weird coincidence that the distance ratio between the Earth and the moon versus the Earth and the sun is almost the same as the size ratio between the moon and the sun. This is why, when the moon passes in front of the sun for a total eclipse, it covers it completely. On other planets, namely Mars, that's not what happens. When one of the moons of Mars passes in front of the sun, it's much smaller and it appears like this. Curiosity was able to observe a ton of these instances, which are called transits, from Mars' 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. It's just really strange to see how things that the average person wouldn't have necessarily thought about are so completely different on other planets. Of course it makes sense and it's perfectly logical, it's just strange to see it right in front of your eyes and really take a second to think about it. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Ceres. This is a series of photographs that were taken on the Apollo 17 mission. The first in the series is another photo that has gone down in history as one of the most iconic. A photo of our beautiful planet as seen from space. I mean, come on, how stunning! We are so lucky to have this as our home. The next photo followed up the last iconic one, and while still interesting, it definitely leaves a little something to be desired. It's a simple photo of a floating engine stage. Still cool, just not as cool as the Earth one. The next photo, however, is when things go a little awry. It appears as though the next photo is someone's failed attempt at photographing the sun. It's so funny. It's just white. No one can see a thing. It's exactly what anyone would do, and I love it. The final photo in the series has whoever took the photos returning back to snap some shots of Earth. I guess they likely didn't realize that the one they already had was better than anyone could have imagined. In our number 2 spot today, we have Mimas. This is a photo that my brain can't even begin to comprehend as real. It's a photo of one of Saturn's moons called Mimas. This moon just so happens to have a 130-kilometer wide crater on it that is called Herschel. This is cool and interesting and makes this moon look absolutely fascinating, but this photo caught by the Cassini spacecraft in 2005 really brings it to a whole new level. As the sun lit up the Herschel crater, the spacecraft caught this image where we can actually see the rings of Saturn in the background. Firstly, Saturn has at least 83 moons, so snapping such a gorgeous picture of one isolated one probably isn't the easiest thing in the world, especially for a spacecraft. Secondly, some of the moons are huge. Like, the biggest of them all, Titan, is bigger than the planet Mercury. It's less massive, and I know Mercury isn't a huge planet, but still, that's pretty huge for a moon, but I guess that isn't surprising considering the size of Saturn. The rings of Saturn are mostly comprised of ice particles with smaller amounts of rocky debris and dust, and it's exceptionally interesting to see how they look even when you're up close. This photo probably isn't that bizarre, but it certainly is spectacular. And yes, you're not alone if you're sitting there thinking that this moon looks a heck of a lot like a Death Star. In our number 1 spot today, we have Alone. No, this isn't a photo from space thriller Gravity, which stars Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, but if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie and I would highly recommend it. Not necessarily the most scientifically accurate movie, but definitely anxiety-inducing. Anyway, back to the photo. This is actually a photo of NASA astronaut Bruce McCandless in 1984. I have no idea how I hadn't seen this photo ever before, as it clearly shows Bruce just roaming free from the Space Shuttle Challenger. No, obviously it wasn't the one that exploded. I had the same thought. They're different. I looked it up. He was able to do this thanks to a nitrogen-powered jetpack, which was called the Manned Maneuvering Unit, and it actually led to him being the first person to ever do a spacewalk untethered. Quite possibly the coolest and one of the most brave things ever. Like, I'd want to do it so bad, but would I risk the possibility of endlessly floating till I met a horrific death once my supplies ran out? Probably not. Bruce had some interesting things to say about the experience, however, saying, quote, "I was grossly overtrained. I was just anxious to get out there and fly. I felt very comfortable. It got so cold my teeth were chattering and I was shivering, but that was a very minor thing. I'd been told of the quiet vacuum you experience in space, but with 3 radio links saying, 'How's your oxygen holding out? Stay away from the engines,' and 'When's my turn?' It wasn't that peaceful. It was a wonderful feeling, a mix of personal elation and professional pride. It had taken many years to get to that point."
Coming in at number 10, we have a ghost in Cepheus. This looks like a ghost in the ether for sure. It's actually a rather mysterious dusty curtain featuring a very faint reflection of nebula VDB 152. The reddish tinge you see is ultraviolet light from a star causing a rusty looking luminescence in the nebula dust. Described as a cosmic phantom, this picture was released by NASA on Halloween in 2012 and titled A Ghost in Cepheus. This intergalactic ghost is 1,400 light years away, so arguably a safe enough distance for us to deal with. Who knows how fast this ethereal dust can travel though? Also, who knows what this dust is like up close? I don't trust it. Dust it. Coming in at number 9, we have telescope ghouls. Whoa, 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 look up at the top of the James Webb Space Telescope. Do you see what I see? Are these the ghosts of dead astronauts or technicians? Or maybe they're alien apparitions? This photo by NASA's Chris Gunn is incredible, and he has aptly titled it Ghosts and Mirrors for obvious reasons. So it turns out that the picture taken in the Goddard Space Flight Center's Spacecraft System Development and Integration Facility clean room is taken with a super long exposure. All the while, ultraviolet lights were being shone over the telescope to look for contamination. Now the result is this spooky picture. Sounds like a reasonable explanation, right? Some may say too reasonable. Joking, but this telescope may well capture some spooky images of its very own in the future. It's the successor to Hubble, and it's off to explore the universe in March 2021. Any Lord of the Rings fans out there, stand up. How much does this exosolar planet look like the Eye of Sauron at number 8? Like, creepily so. Did J.R.R. Tolkien know about the formal hut when he wrote The Lord of the Rings in 1937? If he didn't, perhaps he foreshadowed it. Get a load of this picture. This is Fomalhaut b in orbit around Fomalhaut. The exoplanet is also known as Dagon. It's an extrasolar object and it orbits a star that gives it its name. How far away is this terrifying eye formation? Only 25 light years. The 2012 images from the Hubble Space Telescope are terrifying. The name Dagon in mythology is a Jewish deity that represents a half man, half fish. Just a side note there for you. Coming in at number 7, did NASA capture an alien moon base? And also, did they accidentally release pictures of it? According to some conspiracists, then yeah, they did. Have a look at these and tell me what you think. Is this alien evidence? Conspiracist YouTube channel Secure Team 10 claimed that these images were proof of an alien base on the moon. The YouTube channel has 1.7 million subscribers, so a lot of people are watching their content. Their channel is filled with moon conspiracies, and they think that these images are a smoking gun for NASA. UFologist and hoax buster Scott Brando said that the images used by Secure Team 10 were low quality and low resolution. He seemed to think that the images are just an optical illusion. Who knows though? Another classic from the Daily Express, we have alien astronauts caught on camera at number 6. Some think that Mars rover Curiosity captured aliens, others think that it's a widespread conspiracy that humans are already on Mars. Mars. The first manned Mars mission is set to begin within the next 10 years, but some are saying that the photos taken by Curiosity and published by NASA already show that there are humans on the red planet. Some people think that these shadow images show astronauts working on the rover to repair it. Others say that the droids show humanoid-looking aliens. Now, the conspiracists say that NASA didn't realize how much they were showing when the images were released into the public domain. So, is it aliens, or are humans already up on Mars? If so, why would that be hidden from us? Or do these pictures have a more logical explanation? UFO conspiracist good old Scott C. Waring said that this just goes to show the public that the rover is being maintained by humans on Mars, and that there are other spacecraft kept secret from the public that can carry peers to Mars in just a few minutes. You know what, Scott? I don't know about that one. Okay, these Death Eaters living out there in space terrify me at number 5. The Harry Potter fans in this video will probably be just as freaked out by this as I am. I don't like them. Get a load of what is lurking in the mist of the Carina Nebula. To me, these are straight up Death Eaters waiting to suck out my soul, but actually, they're supposed to be knots of dark molecular gas. Knots of dark molecular gas waiting to suck out my soul, right? These clouds of gas surround the Great Nebula in Carina, which used to be one of the brightest stars in the sky in the 1800s, but now it's significantly faded. This maybe lends credence to my whole sucking theory, right? Okay, fine, they probably aren't Death Eaters, but still, they're spooky. This picture freaks me out. Coming into number 4, we have the Hand of God. NASA released this X-ray image of light detected by NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory in 2014. Can you see why they called it the Hand of God? It kind of looks like, you know. So this is actually a pulsar wind nebula, a stellar corpse that spins rapidly, firing a particle wind. NASA themselves are mystified by the shape. Alongside the image on their website, they wrote, "One of the big mysteries of this object is whether the pulsar particles are interacting with the material in a specific way to make it look like a hand, or if the material is in fact shaped like a hand." Now, a lot of people do genuinely believe that this is God's mark in the universe, like the eye that cropped up earlier. Now, I'm not too convinced, but I'd love to know what you think. We have a famous Mars picture that caused a stir at number 3. We have Bigfoot on Mars. Mars's now defunct robot rover Spirit captured this image in late 2007. Who this? A Rudy Nudie alien lady or Bigfoot? Either way, aliens, right? This image boosted the life on Mars discussion, with many conspiracists saying that this image was proof. NASA explained the image is simply the pareidolia phenomena. This is where humans see faces when they aren't there. Analyzing Spirit's image, if this was an alien, it'd be pretty small, according to Phil Platt of Bad Astronomy website. Anyway, NASA says it's nothing more than a Martian rock, although NASA would say that, wouldn't they? Probably because it is just a rock, right? Coming into number 2, we have this screaming skull. It's pretty terrifying. This screaming skull was another of NASA's Halloween releases, this time from the year 2000. The haunting image was taken from the orbiting Chandra Observatory and is one of a cluster of galaxies known as Perseus. You can see Perseus right here in X-ray vision. The Perseus cluster contains thousands upon thousands of galaxies, so we can't really truly comprehend this picture. It's just much more than a spooky picture than what looks like a skull. It's a lot going on there. While the image is already pretty spooky, it gets scarier when you realize that the bright spot in the X-ray is a black hole. Not to worry though, this scary skull cluster is 320 million light years away. Finally, at number 1, we have a truly iconic and somewhat infamous picture, the Viking 1 faces on Mars. This is one of the most famous NASA images out there and has been used as absolute fuel to conspiracy theorists' fire over the past 40 years. That was since the picture was taken in July 1976. This snap was taken by NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft and seemed to show the shadowy likeness of a human face, only this face is 2 miles long. Taken in the Cydonia region of Mars, the image was sent back to mission controllers at the Jet Propulsion Lab. At the time, theorists went wild, saying that it was evidence of an ancient civilization on Mars. Now, the image did quite look like an Egyptian pharaoh after all. NASA explained that the image was just a Martian mission Mesa with the sunlight playing tricks. NASA later went back with the Mars orbiter camera, but people simply explained the lack of face that time by saying that it was a cloudy day and the alien detail couldn't be seen. I don't know, I'm thinking it probably was just a trick of the light.
Starting off this countdown, we have these space monkeys. If you're an animal lover, then this one is gonna break your heart. Before sending humans into space, animals were launched into space to see how space travel would affect them. They typically chose primates for their close relation to humans. Obviously, looking back at that is hella messed up. A number of monkeys sadly passed away from these tests. I mean, the first monkey sent into space died from suffocation. There's photos of him being prepped and getting ready for space, and now looking at those photos, it's just hella disturbing. So now NASA has removed all the photos they have of their test subjects. They don't want people finding out their controversial past. Of course, you can still find these photos online today, but NASA still has tried to cover it up. In our 9th spot, we have the aliens. It seems like NASA and Area 51 might be hiding aliens. What's new? The photo I'm about to share with you is a leaked photo of aliens hidden in Area 51. The photo was taken in the 1980s, and years later someone leaked it online. I don't know about you, but that looks exactly like a space alien to me. And it looks like they're running some sort of tests on them or something. Now of course, people think that this photo is fake. Go ahead, believe whatever. Just know that there are tons of individuals that believe it to be real. Plus it's never been debunked. Take what you want for that. Coming in at number 8, we have the second sun. According to astronomer Paul Cox, there is a second sun in our solar system, and NASA is keeping it a secret. Why would they do that? I don't know, because they can. So Paul discovered this after using his telescope to stare at the planets. He actually live streamed him doing this, and while doing so, he pointed to a black dot, which was Mercury. He said that this was the location of the second sun. He said, and I quote, "You may be asking yourself, what is that large round thing to the right of the sun? Well, that's our second sun. I don't know if you knew that we had a second sun, but there it is. It is normally hidden from view. NASA and other organizations usually hide that stuff away from us." Now, I don't know why NASA would hide this from us, but apparently they are, and there's a second sun out there. In our 7th spot, we have the SpaceX explosion. Back in 2020, a NASA worker leaked video and photographic evidence of a SpaceX explosion. NASA was furious when they found out and sent out a memo to all workers saying that they would be fired if they publicly shared photos and videos from the Space Center again. And then someone leaked that memo. Anyways, NASA was all like, nah, nothing happened, nothing exploded. Then the video surfaced and they're like, oh snap, we're caught. It started when people saw smoke coming over the space coast and were like, what's going on over there? And NASA failed to properly explain. But like I said, things got leaked and they were exposed. In our 6th spot, we have Planet X. So astronomer Paul Cox says that NASA has proof of Planet X. It's a broken planet that is behind the sun that he believes will eventually crash into Earth and wipe out all of humanity. But obviously, NASA doesn't want anyone to know this, which is why they're hiding it from all of us. And I genuinely hope that this isn't true, and that Paul's lying, and that he knows nothing, because that's terrifying. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the trees on Mars. A weird shot taken of Mars revealed what looked like dark trees rising from the surface. Like, it straight up looks like trees and shrubs are growing there, which we know isn't possible. So then, what is it? Well, NASA says that it's just an optical illusion and it's not actually trees. But other people think that NASA is trying to already grow things on Mars, or that this is part of an alien structure. Who knows? But NASA's being hella sketchy with this photo. In our 4th spot, we have the lady on Mars. In 2007, people went nuts when the Spirit rover snapped this eerie photo on the planet. It literally looks like a human figure perched on a rock. Now NASA immediately denied this and said that, it's just a rock. But that didn't stop UFO enthusiasts. They believe that this rock is actually a female figure made by aliens, or that it is an alien. Like, look at that. How can that be a rock? Like, there's fully arms and clothing on it. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. Nice try, NASA. Better luck next time. That's a woman. In our 3rd spot, we have the space guests. A couple of years ago, a Russian cosmonaut aboard the International Space Station noticed 3 unusual lights fly by their craft.
Thankfully, they got it on film. The cosmonaut believes that what he saw and captured was indeed a UFO flying by. He said, and I quote, "5 objects appear flying alongside with the same distance. What do you think those are? Meteors, satellites, or ... The lights are in a straight line and apparently were hanging around that area for almost a minute before disappearing. He has no explanation for it besides it being a UFO spacecraft." In our second spot, we have the alien statue. In 2019, NASA accidentally leaked some photos that we shouldn't have been able to see. So they released photos taken by their Mars robot Opportunity. In one of the shots, someone pointed out that there appears to be a dark object near one of Mars's craters. It looks like this object has a long arm, a bulky chest, and 2 leg fragments. One person said, and I quote, "It looks like an actual statue. There seems to be so many anomaly stones on Mars that at some point one must admit that sometimes a rock is an ancient artifact." Whereas others believe that this is an alien's corpse that is decomposing. But what do you think? It certainly looks like an alien to me. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the alien city. So there's a theory out there that aliens do actually live on the moon. However, they inhabit the dark side of the moon, aka the side of the moon facing away from us that we can't see. Well, a man named Scott Waring found physical evidence to prove this. He obtained satellite images from the dark side of the moon and saw that the moon has structures that cast shadows. Take a look for yourself. If you zoom into the photos, you can see a bunch of weird objects on the moon's surface. That's not the normal texture of the moon. Those look like structures. So he believes that aliens are for sure on the moon and that NASA has been covering it up for years. Not only that, but the images that NASA chose to share with the public had been altered so that the objects were edited out. And then NASA added fake craters in that location. Why would they do that? Huh? That's suspicious. Yeah, that's hella sus.
Number 10. Oumuamua asteroid. Despite the advances in lens technology and telescopy, there are things that still take scientists by surprise. Shocking. I know. When the interstellar visitor Oumuamua crossed our solar system in 2017, experts could not complain its origins. Not to mention, Oumuamua is the first interstellar object detected passing through the solar system. It was discovered by Robert Work using Pan-STARRS telescope at Leakula Observatory, Hawaii on October 19, 2017, approximately 40 days after it passed its closest point to the sun on September 9th. When it was first observed, it was about 33 million kilometers from Earth. It is a small object estimated to be between 300 and 3,000 feet long, with its width and thickness both estimated between 115 and 148 feet. It has a red color similar to objects in the outer solar system and has a surface similar to comets. The observation suggests that this unusual object had been wandering through the Milky Way, unattached to any star system, for hundreds of millions of years before its chance encounter with our star system. For decades, we've theorized such interstellar objects out there, and now for the first time we have direct evidence they exist, said Thomas Zerbetchen, Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate in Washington in November 2017. Number 9. A giant slug on Pluto. Yup, you heard that right. These days, NASA continues to receive new data from its New Horizons probe. The data, which includes imagery and measurements collected by the craft's camera and instruments, continues to provide new and surprising details about Pluto's varied surface. For example, in this photo, it seems like there's a slug on Pluto. Is it a slug though? I'm not too sure. The bizarre image was taken in 2015. The photo covers an area of Pluto that's part of an icy plain, informally as Sputnik Planum. NASA puts the pitted surface into perspective by saying its surface is separated into cells or polygons 10 to 25 miles wide, and when viewed at low sun angles with visible shadows, the cells are seen to have slightly raised centers and rigid margins, with about 100 yards of overall height variation. So Pluto is not the same as Earth, in case any of you were still confused out there. But what is this slug? Is Pluto ruled by slugs? Well, according to IFL Science, this extraterrestrial gastropod is actually a block of ice, which is disappointing. So no slugs, but just ice. Well, That's what they say. Number 8. Faces on Mars. As reported by Space, this shocking picture, appropriately named the face of Mars, was taken by NASA's Viking spacecraft in 1976. Viking 1 spacecraft was circling the planet, snapping photos of possible landing sites for a sister ship, Viking 2, when it spotted the shadowy likeness of a human face. An enormous head nearly 2 miles from end to end seemed to be staring back at the cameras. While some experts explain this image with the phenomenon of seeing faces in objects and patterns known as pareidolia, many still believe this is evidence of extraterrestrial life. I mean, come on, there's literally faces there. Could it be the faces of people who were buried there? And why are there so many faces? What do they mean? I need answers. Number 7. Dark matter. Dark matter is a hypothetical form of matter thought to account for approximately 85% of the matter in the universe. Dark matter is called dark because it does not appear to interact with the electromagnetic field, which means it does not absorb, reflect, or emit electromagnetic radiation, and is therefore difficult to detect. We're more certain of what dark matter isn't rather than what it is. It's not made of black holes, the light warping they'd cause isn't present. NASA telescopes have helped us better understand this mysterious invisible matter that is 5 times the mass of regular matter. The first direct detection of dark matter was made in 2007 through observations of the bullet cluster of galaxies by the Chandra X-ray telescope, and we continue to learn more every day. Number 6. Black holes. A black hole is a region of space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing, including light or other electromagnetic waves, have enough energy to escape its event horizon. Although we can't see black holes, scientists have been able to study them by observing how they interact with the environment around them with telescopes like Swift, Chandra, and Hubble. In 2017, NASA's Swift telescope mapped the death spiral of a star as it is consumed by a black hole. Later, astronomers used Chandra to have discovered evidence for thousands of black holes located near the center of our Milky Way galaxy, which scares me. Number 5. Kepler 186f. Kepler 186f is the first rocky exoplanet to be found within the habitable zone, as the region around the host star has the temperature that is right for liquid water. The planet is also very close in size to Earth. While planets have previously been found in the habitable zone, they are at least 40% larger in size than Earth, and understanding their makeup is challenging. Kepler 186f is more reminiscent of Earth. Although the size of Kepler 186f is unknown, its mass and composition are not. Previous research, however, suggests that a planet the size of Kepler 186f is likely to be rocky. Even though we may not find out what's going on the surface of this planet anytime soon, it's a strong reminder of why new technologies are being developed that will enable scientists to get a closer look at distant worlds, but we still have a lot to learn. Number 4. Tabby Star. Tabby Star is an F-type main sequence star in the constellation Cygnus, approximately 1,470 light-years away from Earth. Tabby Star is one of the most exciting NASA discoveries. According to Science Alert, Tabby Star is a yellow-white dwarf star with random dimming. Some believe that Tabby Star is a plunette, or a moon that has escaped its planet. Unusual light fluctuations of the star, including up to 22% dimming in brightness, were discovered by citizen scientists as part of the Planet Hunters project. In September 2015, astronomers and citizen scientists associated with the project posted a preprint of an article describing the data and multiple interpretations. The discovery was made from data collected from the Kepler Space Telescope, which observed changes in the brightness of distant stars to detect exoplanets. Number 3. The Great Void. The Giant Void is an extremely large region of space with an underdensity of galaxies and located in the constellation Canis Venatici. It is the second largest confirmed void to date, with an estimated diameter to 1.3 billion light-years, and its center is approximately 1.5 billion light-years away. It was discovered in 1988 and was the largest void in the northern galactic hemisphere, and possibly the second largest ever detected. Unlike a black hole, the Giant Void isn't a hole in space. Instead, it's curiously empty of both matter and dark matter. And also different from a black hole, light can pass through the void, though scientists believe it contains dark energy. Number 2. Great Red Spot. The Great Red Spot is a persistent high-pressure region in the atmosphere of Jupiter, producing an anticyclonic storm that's the largest in the solar system. Located 22 degrees south of Jupiter's equator, it produces wind speeds up to 268 miles per hour. Observations from 1665 to 1713 are believed to be of the same storm, and if that is correct, it has existed for at least 358 years. It was next observed in September 1831, when it was 4 times bigger, with 60 recorded observations between then and 1878, when continuous observations began. According to Business Insider, the reason why this high Curious pressure spot is disappearing is still unclear. Amy Simon, an expert in planetary atmospheres at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, said learning more about Jupiter and its Great Red Spot could help scientists understand Earth's weather system better. Jupiter's weather functions under the same physics as Earth, she said, just millions of miles farther from the sun. Amy also said Jupiter studies could improve our understanding of worlds beyond our solar system. If you just look at reflected light from an extrasolar planet, you're not going to be able to tell what it's made of, she said. Looking at as many possible different cases in our own solar system could enable us to then apply that knowledge to extrasolar planets. Studies predict Jupiter's upper atmosphere has clouds consisting of ammonia, ammonium hydrosulfide, and water. Still, scientists don't know exactly how or even whether these chemicals react to give colors like those in the Great Red Spot. And coming in at number 1 are gamma ray bursts. Gamma ray bursts are another mysterious space phenomenon that NASA cannot fully understand. As reported by Earth's Sky, gamma ray bursts originate in the beam of radiation during stellar explosions, such as supernova or hypernova. On Sunday, October 9th, 2022, a pulse of intense radiation swept through the solar system so exceptional that astronomers quickly called it the brightest of all time. The burst triggered detectors on numerous spacecrafts and observatories around the globe followed up. After combing through all of this data, astronomers can now characterize just how bright it was and better understand its scientific impact. GRB 221009A was likely the brightest burst at X-ray and gamma ray energies to occur since human civilization began, said Eric Burns, an assistant professor of physics and astronomy at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. The burst was so bright it effectively blinded most gamma ray instruments in space, which means they could not directly record the real intensity of the emission. US scientists were able to reconstruct this information from its Fermi data. The signal from GRB 221009A had been traveling for about 1.9 billion years before it reached Earth, making it among the closest known long GRBs whose initial or prompt emission lasts more than 2 seconds. Astronomers think these bursts represent the birth cries of black holes formed when the cores of massive stars collapse under their own weight. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 terrifying photos from other planets NASA can't even explain.
Number 10. Zombie star. While the idea of a human coming back to life and hunting for brains is spooky, to me the knowledge that dead stars can do the same, even the eating each other part, is both scary and exciting. This is Tycho, a former white dwarf, which is a star that has, quote, died and gone supernova, exploding into a fantastic show of cosmic energy and matter with the power and brightness of a billion suns. And usually a white dwarf will stay dead, but not in a binary system where there's more than one star at the center. Sometimes these previously deceased stars can come back to life. And they do this by feeding off the energy and material from their neighboring star and powering themselves back up, not unlike a zombie eating somebody's brains. Scientists believe that this may have to do with what they call dark energy as well, which theoretically makes up about 3/4 of our universe, but since we have yet to truly detect or understand it, these zombie stars will remain a mystery. But they look super cool, right? Number 9. Alien bones. Captured on August 14th, 2014 by the Curiosity rover, this photo appears to show something on the surface of Mars that could chill you to the bone. A femur on the surface of the red planet. Many conspiracy theorists and alien enthusiasts alike hopped onto this to show it as proof that there was once life on Mars, or even that humans had been there before on some sort of secret mission that went awry. NASA has gone on the record to say that it's not a thigh bone, but just a rock that happened to be shaped that way after erosion from wind or water, which we have proven existed at one point. But come on. If it really was a bone, do you think that they'd tell us? Though I'm inclined to go with the scientists on this one, it would be kinda cool if we had proof of aliens on Mars. If you think there are aliens out there, hit the like and subscribe buttons to help us bring you the most amazing videos on them. Number 8. Eye of Sauron. The Rings of Power just finished its first season as I'm recording this video, and since I still have Tolkien on the brain, this photo of the Fomalhaut system made the cut. A relatively young system at 440 million years old. For comparison, our sun is about 4.5 billion years old. Fomalhaut and its surrounding disk of space dust have been the subject of a lot of controversy in the astronomical community. The images captured interest scientists not only because they look like they came straight from Mordor, but because of the zombie planet that has been tricky to find. The photos taken show that the dust ring is not centered around the star, but is shifted and elongated into the eye shape, which indicates something of large mass on the outer parts of the system, which scientists believed could be a Saturn-sized planet. Investigations have been conflicting over the past few years, with researchers believing on and off that the planet exists, and with Hubble images being inconclusive, which is why we call it a zombie planet, because it keeps coming back to life in a way amongst researchers. The system may have gotten its strange ring shape from all of the comet activity as well, with over 2,000 comet impacts daily, many of those comets being over 1 kilometer wide. That would definitely kick up a lot of dust, so one does not simply walk into Fomalhaut. Number 7. Sunken. Okay, I threw this one in because it's currently spooky season while I record this, and having a jack-o'-lantern sun on the list couldn't be passed up. In 2014, the Solar Dynamics Observatory captured this creepy photo of the sun smiling right at us, like its features had been carved right out of a pumpkin. Solar flares and activity on the sun can be quite unpredictable, and the fact that it lined up to look like this is pretty cool. I just hope that there isn't some giant alien up there carving into our sun to decorate their intergalactic porch. But if that's the case, what are we gonna dress up Earth as? If Earth had a Halloween costume, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. Number 6. Greater pumpkin galaxies. Sticking with the Halloween theme, 120 million light years away in the Canis Major constellation, these two galaxies, called NGC 2292 and 2293, have earned a much cooler name, the Greater Pumpkin Galaxies. Because of their orange color and the fact that they look like a jack-o'-lantern, these galaxies doomed to collide in what we will see as slow motion make for a pretty spectacular image. Not to mention that NASA released the photos on Halloween a few years ago. Though it may be a fun Halloween-themed image, there is a scary truth about them. They're on track to collide with each other. And as the two galaxies draw closer, they begin to spin around one another and could eventually form one single spiral galaxy. But when that happens, there will be some cosmic consequences. Things smashing into each other at ludicrous speeds and exploding out into the darkness with the force of many nuclear bombs. But we don't actually know what will happen until it does. While some may say it reminds them of the Great Pumpkin, I would say that it looks more like a 100,000 light year across Jack Skellington. Number 5. The face of Mars. This freaky famous photo was taken by the Viking 1 orbiter in 1976 and shows us what is very clearly a face embedded in the surface of Mars. A massive one at that, judging by the scale of what's around it. It very clearly has 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Uncanny, really, especially for being what NASA has called a cosmic coincidence, because with enough time and space, literally anything can happen. When investigated again in 2001 with a better camera, it was not to be seen. Was it just a mound of rocks and dirt that was blown or moved away, or was it something more sinister, watching us from the red planet, not knowing that we were finally looking back? Number 4. Black hole in the Milky Way. Black holes, one of the biggest driving forces in the cosmos. These places of pure darkness were once stars that shone bright in the sky, but when they died, instead of going supernova and exploding into a blast of color and energy, they collapsed in on themselves, creating a singularity so dense that it sucks everything around it in, with a force that nothing can escape, not even light. And while this may sound scary, they are incredibly necessary for our understanding of the universe to function. In fact, there are a few in our galaxy, but the biggest is Sagittarius A, the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. This is the second image ever captured of a black hole, and it's insane that we've developed the technology to be able to find and photograph them. Sag A sits at the center of our galaxy and is the reason why it spins and has its signature spiral shape. But the scary part is that it is not only spinning our galaxy, but consuming it, adding one more way that our galaxy can meet its demise. Not sure I'd rather that or colliding with another galaxy. Either way, none of us are going to be around to see it. Number 3. Hand of God. This is what's known as a pulsar wind nebula, and what you're seeing is a cloud of material that was ejected from a dying star, captured by X-ray telescopes functioning at different energy levels, lower energy detections appearing in red and green, and higher ones in blue. While we can explain what this stellar specter is made of, we can't quite figure out why it takes the shape it does, and NASA is still wondering if the pulsar particles are interacting in a specific way to make it look like a hand. When the new readings were taken, the ones appearing blue, they realized that one part of the hand is actually shrinking at a different speed than the rest, implying that the two areas were physically different, and making us all wonder what the hand is reaching towards. Number 2. Ghost Nebula. Known formally as SH2-136, really rolls off the tongue. This reflection nebula has some pretty startling shapes appearing within it. A reflection nebula nebula does exactly what you think. It reflects light from nearby stars and galaxies. The energy from stars nearby is not strong enough to ionize the gas of the nebula, but it is enough to illuminate the dust and make it visible to us. Looking at the picture, it's a no-brainer why it's earned its much cooler name, the Ghost Nebula. You can see little figures waving from the edge of the space cloud. They even appear to have horns. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm here for it. Give me all the spooky space specters. Again, this is just one of those cosmic coincidences that we can't explain, and that if we existed at any other place in the universe, we may not see. So we're pretty lucky, I guess. But let's hope our luck holds out for our final entry. Number 1, roaming black holes. Now, I told you about black holes, those things that suck in and destroy anything that comes near, even light, with no chance to escape. But they are pretty detectable, and we should be able to avoid them since they're such a huge cosmic entity, right? Well, what if I told you that there are many out there that are near impossible to detect, because they're moving? That's right. Known as roaming black holes, these death spheres fly through our universe, devouring everything in their path. Only detectable by fluctuations in mass and light, they were most likely two black holes that attracted each other, then slingshotted off one another and were flung out into space. But here's the kicker. The Hubble telescope actually detected one closer than anyone would want, in our own Milky Way. While pointed near the center of the galaxy at Sagittarius A, a fluctuation in light and space shows that we may have one of these devouring our galaxy, and we would never see it coming until it was too late. So there you go, one of my, and possibly now one of your fears, roaming black holes. Space is crazy and terrifying. It is absolutely baffling and will never cease to impress me the technology and knowledge we have developed in our time as a species to investigate beyond our own planet, especially since at the end of the day, we're all just monkeys with car keys.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Pluto Slug. Back in January 2016, the New Horizons probe was sending tons of new information back from our little ex-planet, Pluto. The icy plain shows a series of lines, almost like these giant space slugs, dare I say, are slowly moving across the surface of the planet. Check it out. It reminds me of the episode of SpongeBob where the gang, rides a rock across the ocean floor. Maybe Patrick and SpongeBob are delivering a pizza on Pluto, okay? They could be just in the weeds, they could be busy. This icy area of the dwarf planet is called the Sputnik Planum. Scientists believe so far the reason for all these lines is that the planet is breathing in a way. If that sounds creepy, it's because it kind of is. The planet's cooling and heating and it's kind of moving around, but we'll leave some room open for space slugs because you know what, at this day and age, you never know. I've seen enough Avenger movies, I'm like, could be space worms. Number 9, Mima's Moon. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Just kidding, this one's actually really close. It's Saturn, it's right there. Saturn is known for having a plethora of moons. Saturn in total has 82 moons, including this one, Mima's. A moon that looks oddly familiar. Why do I feel like it's gonna just blast us all to smithereens? Why do I feel like that's gonna happen? Is that the Death Star? Is this thing pointing at Earth? Which way is it pointing here? That really matters. Saturn's smallest innermost moon is causing quite the stir here on Earth. About a month ago, researchers discovered that this moon has a bit of a wobble to it, almost like a floating magic 8-ball. Something is sloshing around inside. Its gravitational pull is a little off. It's just grooving around in the solar system, Mima could potentially be housing a liquid ocean. Yep, we got more water in space. It's pretty close too. If that was the case, everything we know about water and ocean life in space would have to be rewritten. Number 8, black hole helix. Imagine peering through a telescope and then you see this. I would throw up right into my telescope. This is a galactic jet. It's shot out of a black hole at the center of the M87 galaxy. It's pretty scary looking. This helix shot out a whopping 8,000 light years. Yeah, it's pretty far. That's so far I can't even fathom how far that is. Like my brain won't allow me to really picture that. This sounds like a threat, really, but I'll remind you that the M87 galaxy is 55 million light years away from us, so we're not gonna get any galactic jet on our hands anytime soon, know what I mean? But just how does something like this happen? Astronomers in New Mexico discovered that this massive jet is caused by a corkscrew-shaped magnetic field. What in the witchcraft? Like what? Like a space undertow made out of gravity. That doesn't sound jarring at all. According to the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, this is the longest magnetic fields ever found in a galactic jet. Which is fine, that's the first time I've heard of that. I'm like, you can take that rain, enjoy it. We're not gonna try and beat you. It's stuff like this where I ask myself why I'm worrying about a phone bill. Humans are so tiny compared to this. It's insane. We don't matter. Hey, number 8, we don't matter. Hit that thumbs up. Number 7, Jupiter's clouds. We've all seen and heard of Jupiter's big red spot. That's just a nightmare in itself. So big, always going, no idea why, can't even think about it. But when NASA's Juno spacecraft passed the Goliath back in 2017, it captured something almost just as interesting, if not more, dare I say. Jupiter's clouds. It feels like you can just put your arm out and touch the silky space sky. It's beautiful, but that's about 20,000 kilometers away. It's also quite scary. This big ball of hydrogen is quite mysterious below these clouds. So far, NASA has found lightning higher up than they ever thought it could go. They've also found constant storms at both the North and South Pole, and winds so powerful that the planet's magnetic fields are literally being moved around. That's how strong the wind is. Your skin would just blow off. You'd be a skeleton just standing there. Beautiful, mysterious, and deadly. We love space on MA10. Number 6, Mars trees. This looks like moldy bread almost. What in the hell? What are we looking at here? Is this actually a real photo from Mars? Are those trees? There's not a chance here. Matt Damon grew potatoes on Mars in the movie The Martian, but I don't think he can grow any pine trees anytime soon. What you're looking at here is still pretty insane. Due to the evaporation of carbon dioxide frost, dark sand is sliding down the frosted side of the dune, so it makes it look like there's trees on the planet Mars. Sun-heated carbon dioxide ice. That's just, I read that and I go, what? What does that even mean? Where do I start with this? We thought we found a giant alien back in 1976 when NASA's Viking 1 flew by and it looked like a face was in the planet. Remember that? It looks like a Jabberwocky, it's just lying getting a suntan. This one here isn't an optical illusion, it's just weird space science. Number 5, smooth moon. When we think of moons in the sky, or like how other planets have other moons, we think of them as our own. Just a big ball of cheese in the sky, a big sphere, it's got craters, it's pale, we get it, right? Well, as we've seen so far in this list, some moons can look like the Death Star, and some moons can look like chewed gum, apparently. Saturn's small moon Atlas looks like a UFO. It's not a sphere at all, it literally has the shape of a UFO. How scary is that? NASA's Cassini spacecraft caught this image back in 2017, and it almost looks like two moons have crashed into one another, and then now it has a ring-like edge to it. When new photos came back after discovering this moon way back in 1980, scientists were surprised that this moon is actually really smooth. In 4K, they're like, oh, it's not even the pixels, it's actually really smooth. A smooth moon, you say? Let me take a look here. This little smooth moon in the sky, little pervert. Number 4, dead galaxies. This one sounds scary. Dead galaxies. Guardians of the dead galaxy. New research from NASA, including the Hubble Space Telescope, along with the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array in northern Chile, they found 6 different dead galaxies in total. They're all like, that's 1, that's 2, and they're like, hey, we found 4. All dead. Horrifying. How does this happen? Let's look into it. These dead galaxies had run out of the cold hydrogen needed to make stars, and without the fuel for new stars, these galaxies were basically running on nothing at that point. It's kind of like when your car battery dies, only this is on a cosmic scale. This discovery led us to new questions we didn't even know we had. Like, what led to these galaxies to die anyways? What happened to all the cold gas in them so early on? These 6 galaxies lived fast and hot lives, but we aren't sure what went wrong quite yet. Lead author and assistant professor of astronomy at the University of Massachusetts, Kate Whitaker, she proposed several potential explanations and gave us insight onto the future of the studies, which she said, did a supermassive black hole in the galaxy's center turn on and heat up all the gas? If so, the gas could still be out there, but now it's just cold. We need Thanos to come back and just, start this fire up. Just a big, someone get a Bic lighter and just go and just light it back up. Alas, new life. Is that Thor? Welcome back. Number 3, solar flares. Our lives literally revolve around the sun. It blesses us with life energy, solar rotation, and most importantly, tan lines, obviously. But sometimes she acts up. Sometimes she gets a little cray-cray. Sometimes she gets a little and then she spurts out lava and scares us all. Sometimes she creates these powerful magnetic fields that create sunspots larger than our entire planet. Yep, like I said, she's moody. This creates a stream of radiation. It's called solar wind. Now, normally this is a beautiful event to see. We have many photos of it now. The northern lights happen because of Earth's magnetic field reacting to this specific radiation. Beautiful, but really scary when you think about it. This past October, a large solar flare was spotted, and then 3 days later, it finally hit Earth. The geomagnetic storm reached category G2, which out of 5 is pretty strong, especially when you look at it as on a planetary scale. The biggest solar event was back in 1859. It's called the Carrington event. It was strong enough to disrupt telegraph communications, even literally shocking some telegraph operators. Like, if that happens again, and it's even stronger this time, we're looking at huge power outages on a massive scale. Imagine talking to someone on your iPhone and it blows up. Right in the middle of Avatar 2, boom, blackout. Life as we know it is now meaningless. We're all crying in public. Number 2, the space crab. Is the multiverse collapsing? What is this? The appropriately named Space Crab Nebula was discovered back in 1054. Yeah, way back then astronomers looked into the sky and saw this new bright star. They saw it during daytime, that's how they knew something was up. What they were observing at the time was a supernova explosion. How spectacular is that? This was when the Crab Nebula was born. It's not too far away either. It's just a mere, 6,500 light years tucked away in the constellation Taurus. If you're a Taurus, you're watching, you're like, oh, no way. I'm a Libra. I'm like, get out of here. What do you know? The image of the space crab here was captured over the course of 3 months. NASA put together 24 exposures captured by, of course, our Hubble. The orange glow we see, those are literally star remains, just large pockets of hydrogen. The interesting part here with the space crab is back in 2005, over the course of 10 Hubble exposures from September to November, these waves can be seen expanding outwards, waves coming from the nebula's pulsar. Space is so scary. We have one moon to worry about here. Meanwhile, all of this is going on in our space neighborhood. I'm terrified. And finally, number 1, mystery wave. More waves coming in hot. Really hot this time around. If you've seen Interstellar, this next one should hit close to home. I'm not a fan of wave pools or waves in general. My stupid head just bobbing around in the ocean, that's peril. That's a nightmare situation. I can't swim too well. I don't know, I'm too lanky. I'm like a piece of seaweed floating around. The largest wave ever seen in the entire solar system, of course I had to save this one for last. On a planet a little closer to the sun, Venus, the pressure in the atmosphere can cause some massive waves. Back in 2015, a Japanese spacecraft zoomed by and caught this phenomena. Usually clouds there will move around 100 meters a second, but these clouds, these massive ripples, stayed in the same place for 4 days. Way above the ground level also. They were just like, huh? And then they got stuck there. Due to a runaway greenhouse effect, temperatures on Venus hit around 460 degrees Celsius. So this wave may have been powerful enough to change the climate for those 4 days. Pretty crazy. I feel like Canada, we get a lot of weather changes, but this is next level.